we'd like to welcome Ryan Lancaster, wrestling coach at West Ottawa High School, and he's the co-founder of Myrmidon Wrestling in Holland. Ryan, welcome to In the Zone Live.
Thanks for having me, Corey.
So Ryan, I know you had individual regionals yesterday with some of your guys getting out, but let's start with team regionals. You were in the same region as Granville, and our station is one of our 5 schools that we cover. How tough is Granville as a team, and what do you think their chances are heading down to Team State?
Well, with Granville, their lineup is pretty deceptive. They've had a lot of guys that sort of placed ahead of where we saw them going. They're pretty solid all the way through. They've got some really good upper weights, and some of the middle weights have done pretty well too. So I feel that it's a pretty difficult year to win the state title this year if you're not from the east side. But it definitely, Granville, I'm not willing to count them out yet. They've definitely shown them they could prove themselves on the mat. So I feel pretty confident about their abilities.
So Ryan, how did your team do yesterday at regionals?
Well, we had 9 regional qualifiers, which is a record for our school, West Ottawa, and we only had 4 though that made it through. We had our 285-pound wrestler, Miguel Carrera. He's currently ranked 3rd on Michigan Grappler. He won it. We have another guy who's kind of deceptive as far as he hasn't made a lot of splashes in the paper at all, but Nate Colvin at 215, and he sort of goes toe-to-toe with, Courtney Myers from Granville, who's state ranked. He's beaten him this year and kind of trades off with him, so I'm feeling pretty confident about his ability to state too. And we've got a junior wrestler, Gage Keene, his first time making it to the Palace. He was kind of plagued with injuries last year, but he's a tough wrestler, always stays in good position. And then also Gavin Daniels, our 112-pounder, his first appearance at state as well. Super good on top. I'm looking forward to hopefully seeing some splitals out of him at state.
Brian, what is your expectations for your team at state?
Well, honestly, as a coach, you always have illusions of grandeur, and you want the guy to be the highest on the podium. But I do feel that all of our guys have the tools to compete and be all-state. So, and definitely with their upper weights, those guys can definitely place high. It really depends on, how they wrestle that day. It sounds kind of cliche, but I do feel that I'm right now. I'm hoping that we can get a state title out of our big guy. He definitely wrestled with the best, and he's beaten the best. So I do have high expectations for my wrestlers.
You've seen Granville Hudsonville in Jenison quite a bit, well, mostly Granville Hudsonville in the last couple of weeks. Who out of their qualifiers do you think has a good chance? Zach Henderson from Hudsonville is a previous placer. Do you think that any of them have a chance at placing high or getting on the podium?
Oh, yes. As far as Hudsonville goes, yeah. He definitely is a very good wrestler. Definitely gave us a little trouble in a couple of deals we saw him. As far as, like I said, in Granville as well, I do believe that they're upper guys. I know Pike, the heavyweight, sort of fell short this year, but Courtney Myers definitely looks pretty good. Trevor at 25. I feel that they will get a few places this year. So it's just a matter of what they're going to be at the bottom of the bracket, at the top. I think we're going to see a lot of West Michigan wrestlers on the podium this year.
So Ryan, you run a wrestling training center out in Holland. Why don't you tell us a little bit about that and how it got started?
Well, when I was a kid, I got into wrestling at a young age, about the 5th grade age. And they didn't have the opportunities that we have today, like say with My Way Wrestling or youth programs available to a lot of high schools. And so I got my start, like a lot of kids in that time frame, and started freestyle Greco-Roman wrestling, which is the Olympic styles of wrestling. And I definitely got an edge on a lot of kids because they had not wrestled that. By the time I got to middle school, a lot of kids had never even went on the mat before. So I had a pretty successful career at a younger age, and I continued wrestling through, and all the way through college. After I finished my career at Grand Valley, I still wanted to compete, and I wanted to start a a gym where I could do that, kind of cultivate other people that want to wrestle that. And there just was nothing around the area for me to go train. So I decided that with a friend of mine, Dan Kolosowski, who helped me coach there, we started our own program, a youth program. And the last 4 years, it's grown past for wildest expectations. We have kids competing in the national circuit every year. We've got one guy, my training partner, Jeff Anderson, who's always training for a veteran world title. So, like I said, it basically started out as just a way for me to stay in shape and keep competing, and it's sort of turned into this whole other creature. And I've been really happy to be a part of it.
So you mentioned Greco and freestyle being the way of the Olympic style wrestling. Obviously, in the wrestling community, it's known that the IOC decided they were going to cut wrestling starting in 2020. I know that we're all upset about that, but being someone that trains in that style, what are your opinions on this decision?
Well, at first it was, it's very disheartening, obviously, waking up that morning and finding it in the paper, especially I felt blindsided. I mean, in the wrestling community, if you travel around and you pay attention, it's always sort of been on the chopping block. At least Greco-Roman wrestling has. Its appeal has not been what it has been, at least in the Western sphere of the world. But I definitely have been at odds with it. It's obviously, when I tell my wrestlers when they wrestle that you got to know yourself, but you got to know your enemy too. And in this case, knowing the ILC, why would they decide this? What was their decision? And if you look at like Mark Adams, he's a spokesman for the IOC. He says it's not what's wrong with wrestling, but it's right with the other 25 core sports. And for me, there's a lot of underlying undertones with that. What is wrong with wrestling? They like to cite a lot of stuff like viewership and attendance and things like that. But really, what it comes down to is money. I really feel that the wrestling community, at large in the world, is being extorted by the IOC to see if they can get some more money. So, is this a fight that we can win? I believe so. Is it going to be easy? No, because we need to get more capital. And I don't want to be cliche like Tom Brand says, but we, as a wrestling community, need to come together to stop this.
Do you think we'll see some of the guys maybe who are future Olympians, Taylor Massa? Do you think that any of these young guys who that's their dream will take Olympic red shirts from college and try to wrestle in 2016? Do you think that's a possibility for some of these guys, knowing that it may not come back?
Well, it's definitely an option. I don't feel that the Olympic red shirt is something that wrestlers are going to want to give up right away. I mean, if all else fails, kids, if they do have a serious shot at making an Olympic team, are at least going to take another year to train with their university. If you look at the stats here, as far as Greco-Roman goes, none of the Olympians we had last year trained at regional training centers, and regional training centers are almost always associated with the university, like Penn State has a Nittany Wrestling Club, and the Iowa Hawkeyes have the Iowa Hawkeyes Wrestling Club. So, but if you look at the top wrestlers and Olympians for freestyle wrestling, all those guys were either Division I national champions, All-Americans, or trained at a regional training center. So I definitely feel that wrestlers are still going to want to take, advantage of having an Olympic red shirt year. So yeah, if this is the last year we have it, you're definitely going to see a lot of guys still trying to get that.
Ryan, thanks for your time. I'll definitely probably hook up with you down at the Palace. Good to talk to you. Good to have you. Maybe we'll even see you this week if we can bring some guys over to your school to practice.
All right, sounds good. I appreciate talking with you guys.
Thank you.
That was Ryan Lancaster from West Ottawa High School. He's an assistant wrestling coach there and a good friend of mine. Wrestled with him at Grand Valley. Traveled all over the country with him. And what he's doing, and part of the main reason I wanted to get him on is because obviously he's seen our schools, but he also has a strong opinion on the IOC's decision. We're going to take a quick break. I know we had technical difficulties. We're going to shake off some of that rust. We'll be back on In the Zone Live right after this.